I am grateful to be in your presence today. Again, my name is Alfonzo Mayo. I am the founder and servant leader of an organization called Mentoring Mentors, and I am proud to be a part of this summit this year for 2022. Needless to say, there was a vision set a while ago in Baltimore to how do we properly address trauma. And it's nice to see you on camera, so I thank you for that. How do we properly address trauma? And so what I want to do, even before getting into how promise can help you overcome trauma, right? I want to let you know who's in the room with you. Is that fair? That's fair, all right? So even as the presenter, I want you to know who's in the room with you, all right? And so allow me to share my screen really quick so you know exactly who's in the room with you. So we're gonna just do like it's just a brief 2-minute video. Give me a thumbs up if you can see what's on my screen. Can you see? All right. I'm gonna stop sharing really quick because I wanna make sure that I maximize the sound and audio. There we go. So this is who is in the room with you currently.
On rye, but you can't hold back the Mayo in Baltimore. Alfonzo Mayo was born with a bad heart. His drug-addicted mom left him when he was 6 months old. He saw violence every day, couldn't read or write, and then he made a promise to make Baltimore better by mentoring. Alfonzo Mayo beat grit, crime, and despair. He scored the biggest upset in life, his own. He should have been a statistic.
I could have been. I should have been.
And now it's all the young men who face similar circumstances in their life that benefit.
What Baltimore means to me is my life. It's where I'm from. It's who I am. It's a part of my story.
It's a story that really starts at his grandma's dying bedside when he made a promise to her to get an education and to help others. But first, he had to learn how to read.
He learned how to read through me, which was crazy. So I didn't know that until recently.
I would just pretend like I was helping him with his homework. And as he would read, I would just pick up on the words that he would say, slowly but surely. And then I would just go and practice behind him.
Unbelievable that 4 years ago, Alfonzo Mayo kept his promise. He walked across the stage at Stevenson as a college graduate.
Mr. Mayo taught me what it is to be a man.
A man who graduated from high school and is now going to Morgan.
I was like one of the kids who was going to drop out for real, like high school.
But Mayo Magic convinced William Fernandez to stay in high school, to graduate, and now he's heading off to college.
They have what they need inside of them. It's just no one realized their potential, and that's what we do.
What he did was form Mentoring Mentors.
He did like family problems, like if you down, figure out ways to bring you back up.
A lot of those guys been given up on, written off, thrown away. And I don't think that's fair.
What I was like at first was, I was like off the chain, but then Mr. Mayo helped us straighten up. I got my grades up. My grades was like at a D minus, but now I'm at like a B plus to an A.
What do you want to do with your life?
I'm trying to get into a good college, specifically Maryland, Duke, or Florida State University.
Wow, that talk never seemed possible. Alfonzo, what are you doing?
You know, over the years, I worked with 82 kids, 79 being male. Only 4 or 5 of them had dads in their home.
And now Alfonzo is a dad in his own home. He married the love of his life, and just last week, Mason Mayo was born 6 pounds, 11 ounces, 19 and a half inches long.
You save people, you know that.
I wouldn't call it that, but yeah.
All right, so that's who you have in the room today, right? Alfonzo Mayo, I'm simply me. My family and friends call me Mayo. I am a Stevenson University graduate. I graduated with my human service degree back in 2014, and then I took my talents over to Johns Hopkins for nonprofit management. But even before then, I knew that I was serving youth development. It was 2002 when I walked inside an early childhood education classroom, really to talk to females, but I fell in love with the curriculum. All right, and since then, my passion has been, how do I serve youth? Weirdly enough, going into high school, I was reading on a first grade level, and my math level was a little bit lower. And I just happened in my community, there was a place called St. Ambrose Outreach Center. I walked in, and there lied another attractive lady that kind of caught my attention. And she said, "Hey, we're hiring for tutors." I didn't even know what a tutor was. And at the time, they was hiring for tutors for first and second graders. I said, "Okay, I'll do it. If I could, you'll pay me $150 a month, I'll take it." Little did I know that those first and second graders would teach me the language of reading. And today, who you see is because of young people. And so my heart goes out to young people, not just here in Baltimore, but across this world, because I do believe that they need leaders like myself and like you who are on this call to step in, to show them different ways that they can overcome their trauma and also become successful. And I know this is the trauma summit, so a lot of my colleagues are talking about trauma directly associated with data points. I want to do something a little different here, okay? If you looked at the title, it talked about how your promise can help you overcome trauma, all right? And so I want to focus on how do we overcome trauma, right? For me, I think that trauma is unavoidable, no matter what your social class is, your background, your upbringing, what country you live in, we all will face some form of trauma. Would you agree? If you agree, give me a thumbs up. We'll all face some form of trauma, right? However, in Baltimore, it's perpetuated that like Black people, Black youth are the only ones that are somehow affected by trauma. When I know for a fact that, Carrie, if you go into work and you witness a crime, you are affected by trauma. Amy, if you go into work and something happened, you are affected by trauma. Or maybe that was something that happened in your childhood that affected the way that you live and think now today, right? So trauma, it's gonna happen. It's almost unavoidable. But the thing that I want to focus on is how do we respond to trauma? That's critical because there's two things that we can do. We can either respond to trauma in a negative way, which leads to negative outcomes, or we can respond to trauma in a positive way, which leads to positive outcomes. And so I wanted to share a little bit about my story that you didn't hear in that news clip, okay? So first, yes, I'm born and bred right here in Baltimore. I'm proud of it, and I wouldn't say, even if I live somewhere for 25 plus years, I'm always going to claim that I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. That's number one, because it made me who I am. I would just be taking my talents into another realm. So that's number one. Number two, I was born to a drug addicted mom and a drug addicted dad. Back in the 80s, at the height of the crack epidemic, my parents fell victim to that. No fault of my own. I didn't choose my parents like you didn't choose your parents, but that's the world that I was born into. I could have used that right there, just that alone, without telling you anything about me, to be in gangs, to commit crimes, to drop out of school, and the list goes on. At 6 months, my mom did something that most mothers wouldn't do, but my mom, because of her addiction, she abandoned me. She left me in an abandoned house right off of Division Street, just right up from the total health care. I sometimes get a chance to drive by and I think to myself, had that not happened, who would I be? But I'm grateful that it happened because I am the person I am today. That's because I'm on the right side of my trauma, all right? So when that happened, my dad, he was incarcerated. And when he came into my life, my first memory of my dad is that of my dad abusing me. And my dad didn't just abuse me physically, it was mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Like, these things are real things that happen in my life. No one in my family valued education. No one in my family had went off, graduated from high school with honors, cared to go into college or was some sort of entrepreneur. Nobody did those things. And my grandparents who raised me, they were so far like removed from school that my granddad dropped out in the 3rd grade. My grandma had a middle school education, which means that that came with social economic determinants. My entire family was receiving services from social service, right? We were far under the poverty line. And I didn't know any of these things when I was younger. But as I started to get older and I started to get around different family, friends, and different cultures, these things became apparent that I was in a deep end of trauma. I was in a deep end of poverty. This might sound weird to you, but as I didn't even know, I grew up on North Avenue, right up the street from where the Freddie Gray riots took place. I didn't even know Micah existed. Literally 8 blocks. I didn't know Micah was a campus. I learned that about Micah as an adult doing the work that I do now through T. Rowe Price, who invited me to like a boost program. That's how I found out about Micah. So to say that, you know, trauma hurts, poverty hurts is a real thing. And it can start as early as birth, like it did with me, or it can happen later on in life. You can experience trauma in your friendships, your intimate partnerships, school for that matter. And so when it came to school, my family didn't value education. So guess who else didn't value education? Me. I was being passed on to the next level, but I wasn't earning, I wasn't learning anything. And so finally, my trauma caught up with me because I knew I couldn't read. I knew I didn't have math skills. I knew I couldn't write. In my 9th grade year, I was actually diagnosed with a learning disability through Kennedy Krieger. Literally, they wrote in their form that I shouldn't read books, that everything should be given to me or written for me because of my lack of skills. I didn't learn about that until about 3-4 years ago when my son was diagnosed with autism, but that was written about me my 9th grade year. However, my 9th grade year, after my experience with those first graders, I told myself that, hey, I really want to learn how to read. And through my opportunity of tutoring them, I learned how to read, and I graduated in the top 10% of my class of high school. I was the first person to go off to college, right, Carrie? And then I was also the first person to fail college. So that's another story for later. But guess what? I was able to bounce back. And so what I've learned, that trauma, yes, it's a real thing. Everyone is exposed to it. However, internally, we all have something that's called resilience. Resilience is not something that people can necessarily see, and it's not something that people can necessarily teach, but it's something that lies within us. And you might say, well, I believe I'm resilient, right? Because the trauma that affects you, Amy, the trauma that affects you, Carrie, might not be trauma to me. It might be low-level trauma for me, but high trauma for you. However, the thing that, again, that I'm going to teach about is how we respond to trauma is relatively important than how we can define trauma. Just recently, I was talking to one of my good friends, and I told him that nothing bad has ever happened to me. Think about that statement for a minute. Nothing bad has ever happened to me. He said, well, what do you mean, Mayo? I said, nothing bad has ever happened to me. Everything that I have experienced have happened for me, because there's not one thing that I haven't overcome. I can almost assure you that between Alexandra, Amy, and Carrie, that you all have experienced something that hurt you dearly, but you're here today to tell your narrative and to tell your story, and you're still going forward. Would you agree? Thumbs up if you agree. Something hurt you, but you've overcome it. You're moving forward, right? That's resilience. And so the one thing that might have hurt you, whether it was abuse, whether it was neglect, whether it was drug addiction, whether it was witnessing a crime, whether it was a loss of a job and facing homelessness, whether it was, you're here today, which means that you overcome that circumstance. And now you have a different mindset about that circumstance. But you would have never had that mindset unless you experienced that circumstance. Because some trauma, just like myself, isn't your fault. What do you say to the young lady or the little boy who's sexually molested? That's not their fault. They have no control over that. However, if you grow up and you're on a negative side of trauma and all of your behaviors are promiscuous, right? Or you can say, hey, because I was hurt this way, this is how I'm going to respond to it. I'm going to respond to it in a wholeness way. So I'm not willing to give my body to anyone that's not my husband or wife. Now I'm on this side of it, but that's a choice. And you might say, well, Mayo, maybe in a space that you're in, it's easy for you to make that choice because you're an adult. That's not necessarily true, because a reminder, when I was in 9th grade, I was at the lowest point of my academic career. There was a point where I wanted to drop out, but I knew I had a dream of going to the NFL, and those two things clashed. I went on a walk to clear my head. I walked into a building called St. Ambrose Outreach, and I was introduced to tutoring. I learned the language of reading through tutoring, and that saved my life. Again, you're never too young to make a decision today. And so let's get into some real topics, right? So again, what I'm saying is that trauma, it can happen at any stage and phase of your life. The early onset can be from birth until the day that you depart from this world. However, when you're young, birth through about 10, 11, 12, and you're not able to make those conscious decisions, it's really out of your control. However, once your frontal lobes start to work and you're able to make good and bad decisions, you're able to have that inner person say, man, that was the wrong decision. I shouldn't have made it. You are now in complete control of your destiny. And this is what and maybe you got a note, maybe you type it on the computer, I don't know. But there's something that I would like for you to understand. There's something called and I coined this phrase, right? But you can use it. It's something called destination by design and destination by default. We all are going somewhere in life. The ultimate goal is that you design your destination to overcome your trauma. That's the ultimate goal here, Gary. Destination by design, destination by default. Will we all agree that tomorrow's going to happen, that 3/3/2022 is going to happen? We can all agree, right? And then 3/4/2022 is going to happen. So tomorrow's going to happen. What comes of tomorrow is completely up to us. So like, for example, if I'm experiencing some trauma and I'm having a bad day, today, 3/2/2022, I can take that mindset into 3/3/2022. That's my choice. And what I've seen in a city like Baltimore and cities alike is that a lot of people allow their trauma to perpetuate their future. Carrie, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Amy, neither does you. Miss Newton, you don't, and Alex don't, and I don't. None of us have that ability. However, when we respond negatively to our trauma, what we're really responding to is a past event that we can't change, but we relive it every day. And so we're literally living a life of destination by default. Imagine doing this, right? Just so I can land this plane a little bit. Imagine getting on a flight, Carrie, and you're about to go on vacation, right? Or Amy, you're about to go on vacation. Alex, you're about to go on vacation. Miss Newton, you're about to go on vacation. And you get on the plane. Somehow you got first class seats, right? So you're up the front, and the pilot comes on the intercom and said, hey, thank you for getting on Southwest Airlines Flight 980. We're going somewhere. You don't pack your beach clothes. You got your bikini. You can't wait to take those pictures for Instagram, right? We're going somewhere is what he said. That's destination by default because you're going somewhere. You just don't know where you're going. And when you have that negative viewpoint on trauma, that's destination by default. You all packed up, but you don't know where you're going to land. Now, when you have a destination by design, right, Carrie, that means that you called into Southwest, you say, hey, I'm trying to go to Miami Beach. I'm going August the 5th through the 10th. It's going to be hot. I'm going on the beach. So when you get on Southwest Airlines Flight 980, the pilot should get on and say, hey, thank you for getting on Southwest Flight 980, traveling from BWI to Miami. Destination by design. And when you're on the right side of trauma, it's destination by design because you understand this is where I started. I'm at BWI, but this is where I want to go. I want to go to Miami. So yes, my father did abuse me, but that doesn't mean that I have to abuse the people that's in my life. Yes, my entire family embraced not having a highly qualified academic experience. Yes, no one graduated from high school or tried to go to college. Yes, most of them was addicted to drugs or alcohol. But if I have a destination by design, I can say, well, I'm choosing to go to the destination where I don't have to do those things. I know what they look like because I know my starting point. I purchased this ticket. And that's where the transition have to happen, at least here in Baltimore. And what I see again is that trauma is perpetuated by not only our mindset, but our families, our community, our school systems, and other systems that's in place. I'm not sure if any of you guys watch the news. I no longer watch the news. But if you turn on the news today, I guarantee you trauma will be perpetuated. They'll tell you everything that's going wrong and nothing that's going right. Fair? Is that fair? They're going to tell you about the killings that happened, but they're not going to tell you about the young man that's trying to graduate from high school, that probably got accepted into Yale or Harvard or Morgan. They're not going to tell you about that. There's not an equal balance. So when I say systems perpetuated, so we're direct. One of the things that I love to teach kids is, right, and maybe you can drop this in the chat box if you have time. If I eat a bunch of donuts, what will happen to me? Any of you know? Like, let's say I don't eat any like steaks. I just eat a lot of donuts. Anybody? What's the cause and effect of me eating that?
Can we talk or answer?
No, yeah, come on, please. You off mute.
Yeah, so sugar, like in those donuts. So seriously, there's biological effects, like it screws up your thinking, like blurry. Your brain is blurry, like the whole part of your brain that's where decisions are supposed to be made. Like there's nothing in it for you. It's not gonna, that sugar is like what you call empty calories. And it costs, if you're gonna buy some sugar, just buy some vegetables or fruit or protein or something instead.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. So this is what she's saying. She's saying, if I eat it, right, it's empty carbs, it's just sugar. It's not gonna allow me to think straight. And then Carrie said, you'll end up with high blood sugar, right? Possibly diabetes. I can die, correct? So that means whatever I feed myself is a direct link to the outcome that I would have. Would you agree? So most people think that feeding myself means whatever I'm eating, but whatever I'm watching is also feeding myself because I have to internalize it. And if I watch enough of it, it becomes the way that I think, my perspective, my values, my belief systems, the music I listen to. It's all internal, right? My food is inside. What I see goes inside my brain. What I hear goes inside my brain. It's all internal. And so what I've seen, especially in Baltimore, is this narrative where we're feeding ourselves negative narratives over and over and over, over and over and over, over and over, but we're expecting positive results. I wore this shirt on purpose. It says a negative mind will never give you positive results. And so a lot of times we're focusing on our trauma, what my dad did to me, what my mom did to me, what my husband did to me, what my sister did to me, what my job did to me. If that's your focus, that's where you're gonna go. That's gonna be your landing strip. Destination by default. But if you say, in that circumstance, how did it make me better? Okay, I'll give you an example. I told you early in this conversation that my dad not only abused me physically, but mentally, physically, right, emotionally. I told you that my mom abandoned me in an abandoned building at 6 months. I'm a father today. What I told myself and I convinced myself is that, hey, my dad did teach me lessons, even though I didn't know he was teaching me lessons. He taught me the type of father I didn't want to be. My grandparents indirectly, my family indirectly taught me that I didn't want to be that type of student because I knew we were receiving assistance from the government and that if poverty was here, we were here. I knew that. So I had to do something different than the trauma that I was exposed to because we're a direct connection to the things that we think and we feed ourselves, right? And so I know for a fact that trauma, if you can use it and paint this Mona Lisa of pain, hurt, and suffering, or you can paint this Mona Lisa of resilience, overcoming, accomplishing, achieving. Because if you're here today, then you did overcome. Yes, it might have hurt you, but you overcame it. Yes, it might have felt like a setback, but you overcame it. You're here today. Yes, it might look like, hey, my entire family is dealing with this. But yes, thank God I can see it, because I don't have to be like that. I have a choice. And you know, I believe my application, I said, we'll talk a little bit about spirituality here. But I genuinely believe, no matter what your religious beliefs is, God gave all of us a choice to be a good person or a bad person. That's not really subjective. Hurting people is bad, no matter what you look like. Going to school and not putting my best foot forward is bad, no matter what you look like. Sitting on a conference for 45 minutes and barely listening, or going to a training and not offering my best, or going to work and complaining to my coworkers, or being in a relationship and talking about my significant other, or talking down to my kids, that's what result do you think you're going to get? And so if you want to overcome trauma, the first thing you have to do is stop using trauma as an excuse to be a bad person. We all have to have some shift in our mindset and have a level of accountability where we're offering people our best selves. And you might say, well, Mayo, man, it really hurt me. And I'm with you. What my dad did to me really hurt me. What my mom did, my family did. I'm gonna be honest, what this community does in Baltimore really, really hurts me. When I turn on, or when I get a call from a child that we're serving and they say, hey, one of my friends got killed, that hurt me, even if I didn't know that child. Because I know that we just lost some great potential. We might have lost the next president. We might have lost the person that had the solution to global warming. We might have lost the person that could have come up with a vaccination to cure COVID-19. We might have lost that. So that hurts me. But what I realized was that if nothing else, what I can do is I can teach people about wholeness, because wholeness cures trauma. Well, what is wholeness, Mayo? Well, wholeness is a self-reflection of oneself, where you really want what's best for yourself and you actually do the things that you say you want to do that are healthy for you. Ms. Ross said earlier, you know, if you eat those donuts, we know it's packed with sugar. We know you can get diabetes, right? We know those things. Or you can go get vegetables. Okay, some people might say this, Carrie. Well, it's expensive to be healthy. Well, the last time I checked, I can get broccoli from Walmart for 99 cents. That's fair. I eat donuts, right? Every donut I purchase costs $1.25 or more. So I can literally substitute that one little 500 calorie for something that's 20 calories and have protein that's going to help me think better. That's a choice. That's a choice. But what do I need? I need somebody in my life that can teach me that I do have choices and then hold me accountable for the choices I make. I'm not sure if anyone on this call work out, right? But if you have a trainer, the truth is you can train by yourself, but you ask for a trainer because you know your trainer will hold you accountable for doing the things that you want to do for yourself. The good things, right? So that when you post that IG pic or that LinkedIn pic or that Instagram pic, you look your best self. Because if it was up to you, you would just get it. You would go in there, you would work out for 10 minutes, sweat, and then leave. It's not saying that you couldn't do it. You can do it, but sometimes you need a person that can say, hey, this is the opposite side. This is the opposite. This is destination by design. What type of future are you designing? And all of that is based upon some of the choices that you have embraced. All of it's based upon some of the things that your family has taught you. And I get when you were, you know, an infant, a toddler, early adolescent, or a preschooler, right? A preteen. I understand why you made those choices, because you didn't have a choice. But now you do have a choice as an adult. You do have a choice as a young teenage. You do have a choice. Because if you can use your mouth right? That means you can use your brain. There's something that I often share with people. It says that as a man or woman think, so is he and she, right? So whatever I think of, that's what I become. So when I shared with you earlier that I told one of my spiritual brothers that nothing bad has ever happened to me, it happened for me. I meant those words. And my narrative now shifts that I am stronger because I overcame every single challenge and obstacle that was placed in front of me that I had no control over. Life gave me some resistance and I bounced back. That's how we reverse trauma. That's how we reverse trauma. We get enough people to believe in themselves to understand that what I experience is not the end total or end sum of me. It's just a part of my narrative, but it doesn't have to be my entire narrative. You guys ever had like a bad morning, right? Where you went out and your tire was flat or your car didn't start? Anybody had that? Right? All right, I'm assuming that if you're human, you had to have it at some point, right? Or you ran out of gas and you had to call somebody, right? And you was late for a meeting. So you had a bad morning, okay, right? So some people will go on social media and say, man, my day is not going well because I woke up to a flat tire, my cat ripped up my sheets, my dog pooped in the middle of my couch, my engine won't start. What am I going to do? And then they'll say, man, like I know I get paid, but I don't got the expenses to pay for all of these things. Some people will say, man, I'm having a bad day. And so when they do finally get to work, their coworkers say, how you doing? They say, man, I'm okay. I'm okay. But they okay just means not well, right? And then they go and in every single interaction that they have for the remainder of that day is just okay. Carrie, let me ask you a question. Just be honest. You can say yes or no. If you had $100, right, and you lost $10, would you give up the other 90?
No,
You wouldn't. Why not?
because it's still 90 more than you had.
Still 90 more than I had. So when people say I had a bad day, you woke up at 7:30, the problems happened from 7:30 to 8:30. You're not going to sleep until 10 p.m. Why give up the remainder of your day? Okay, let's associate that example with trauma. It happened to you at 3 years old. It happened to you at 7. It happened to you at 10. It happened to you at 18. You're now 50. You're now 40. Does it have to control the rest of your life if you live to see 80, 90, 100? Does it have to control that? I don't believe it does. I don't believe it has to control that. Because I would be a prime example. If I let those things control me, I will feel defeated every day. I will have nothing to offer you guys besides a sob story. You've seen the news clip, abandoned by his mom, abused by his dad, couldn't read. It would just be another sob narrative. And I would take that to my grave and I would have contribute absolutely nothing to my community, nothing to this community, nothing to my universities, nothing to my kids, nothing. I would contribute nothing. Why? The shirt says it best. Negative mindset will never give you a positive outcome, a positive life. The way that we talk about trauma here in Baltimore, I'm in total disagreement with. Because we talk as if it's a handicap, when the truth is, it's actually some, not all, but most trauma that you overcome is a strength because you overcame it. That's how we should start shifting the narrative around trauma. Want me to tell you the honest truth? Carrie, when you got on here, I was already talking, right? I was already talking. Carrie was the first one on here. I was already talking. I was going to do this presentation whether you guys got on here or not, because I have something to offer. It doesn't matter if no one shows up. Don't show up. Okay, but I'm still going to do what I know God gave me the power to do, and that's to think positive. That's to be positive. That's to grow positive. That's to plant seeds of positivity. Because that's the way we overcome trauma. We stop speaking to the things that, yes, they're real, but what's the opposite of that? Yes, poverty is real, but what's the opposite of that? Skills. Why are we not talking about the skills people have? Okay, yes, we know our education system is not the strongest right now. It's not. Okay, but what about the students who go to them same broken schools and perform to the best of their ability? What about them? Why aren't we looking at them as case studies? Why aren't we looking at them to say, how are you overcoming this? And why aren't we pairing them with their peers when we know that peer pressure is some of the greatest pressure that any of us will face? Why aren't we pairing them with some of their peers? They say, hey, you can teach them because they'll listen to you. They're not going to listen to Amy because she got her degree. She got her family. She got a job. Why is they going to listen? No, they're going to listen. They're going to listen to Tim because Tim goes to that school. Why are we not lifting those young people up? Right? And so I know we have a few minutes here and I want to be respectful of your time. But the truth is, what we do for my organization, Mentor and Mentors, which was founded in 2014 and we lifted in 2015, is we teach youth the importance of developing positive long-term relationships with one another. To teach based upon resilient-based strengths. Hey, bro, you might can't read, I can I help you? We teach them how to work collaboratively. But we understand that they have challenges with academics, so we provide tutoring services that really focus on some of the core learning lessons, right? So if you're in second grade reading, no problem. I was on first grade when I was in the ninth. How can we grow you from here? It doesn't matter if you're in the seventh or eighth or ninth grade. How can we grow you from here? How can we get better for next year is what we say. And we know that academics have a direct reflection on self-esteem. So you wonder why so many kids are mad. That's because they're struggling academically. Then they got to go home and deal with additional struggles, right? That's unfair. So we say, hey, we'll give you a safe place to come where you can be yourself, where you can really learn about your potential, and then allow us to hold you accountable because we're in this together. By the time they hit ninth grade, most students, and this is the God honest truth, if you ever want to fact check me, please come. I'll give you the data. Any student that's been in our program from 3 to 5 years today, they at school 98% of the time. They're at our program 80 to 85% of the time. They each do community service anywhere between 30 to 75 hours a year. And all of our students, I am extremely proud to say, have either a 3.0 or better GPA. Now you have a few that might not meet that quota, but it's so small. It's so small because they understand that we're training them and teaching them to think about the leaders that they one day will become. And yes, they face the same peer pressure that their peers have, but they're able to make wiser choices. They're able to make wiser choices. Why? Because they understand destination by default and destination by design. If we're going to change Baltimore City, if we're going to change trauma, then it has to be destination by design, which means we need leaders who believe in designing the city to be something great. God told me that if we can figure it out here in Baltimore, we can figure it out across this country. That's the truth. If we can figure it out in Maryland, we can figure it out across this country. I just want to be a part of the process of figuring it out. I don't want any credit. I don't need any credit. The credit speaks for itself. The young men that we started with all graduated from high school. None of them were honors, by the way. I'm lying. One of them were honors. They all entered into college. Today, none of them young men have been arrested. That's how we overcome trauma. None of them are doing what some of their counterparts are doing. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn. This is because this is what we're teaching. We understand what you experience. Let us help you think differently about yourself. Let us grow together. That's community. That's real community. Let us grow together. Let us learn together. Let us take this trip together. All right. And so you do what you want with this information, share, bash it. Well, I don't care. I'm just here to tell my story and tell you how your promise can literally help you overcome your trauma. You might say, well, Mayo, why did you use promise? This is why I use promise. And I'll let you all go. The last words that my grandmother ever said to me was, Mayo, not Mayo, she called me Little L. Don't call me that, please don't. She said, Little L, when are you gonna go back to college? I wasn't planning on going back. I really wasn't. And at that time she had dementia and cancer. She couldn't remember anything else, but she remembered that I promised her that I was going back. I said, Mom, don't worry about me. I promise you I'll go back. They wheeled my grandmother out the house. They took her to a nursing home. A week later, my grandmother passed away. And my life became based upon that promise that I made to my grandmother. And in that promise, I made a promise to myself that I'll help as many young people and many people as I possibly can through my testimony, through my stories, through my posts, through my words, through my actions. And that's why I'm here today. And I appreciate you guys for joining me. Thank you so much for your time. I am extremely grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Have a good one, Carrie. Amy, it's always great to see you. Alex, Miss Newton, and Miss Lewis, you guys take it easy.